Okay, we are at Jackie and Ellis's Rudd's house on April 13th, 1989. And we're going to have them tell us about their parents and their grandparents. Okay.
Just show on the way, guys.
Yes, yes. Start by, where did Grandpa and Grandma Chris live?
Well, they lived in Hagerman Valley, and most of their life they lived in Dry Creek, north and west of Bliss, about 12, 14 miles. And they have most of the time, in the wintertime, they was all snowed in there. They bought enough groceries in the fall to put them clear through the winter, and then they'd come out in the spring and load up, and then every time Grandpa come down to us kids down at Hagerman in the spring, he had a crop of whiskers that come clear down to his belly button, and then he expected us kids to hug and kiss him all the time. And Mom got kind of mad at it, but we enjoyed having them come down, and they're going to come down and stay about 2 weeks in the spring before they go back home and let the snow get around. And Grandma Chris, she was blind when a long time before I was born, and I don't think she ever seen my mother. And,
Saw the first two. Saw the two oldest ones.
she saw the two oldest. She
That's
saw
all
the
she
two
ever-
oldest ones then.
That's all she ever saw.
Okay. Why did she go blind?
They didn't ever know. She just had headaches, and
She
those days
she went blind during childbirth. So they told me that they got her feet higher than her head, and the blood went from her bottom part up into her eye and made her blind.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I've been told 2 or 3 times. But she took care of her home up at Dry Creek. She could cook anything, pin her anything she wanted, except when some of the kids would come home and try to cook up a meal. They'd move all the stuff around on the shelf, and it took her for a month after that they left to get her stuff all straightened out so she could just reach up on the shelf and get it. But the girls finally found out, was smart enough to put the stuff back up kinda in the way that it was supposed to be. So, now I'll tell you some of the pranks that was played on her. Her youngest son and my dad got up early one morning, and she had a potty under the bed where she generally used during the night, and they pulled it out from under the bed and put fly paper over the top of it. When she got up to use it the next morning, while she sat down in that and just let out a scream and started to cussing those 2 guys, because she knew who in the devil it was to do that. And one morning I was sleeping in the north room of the house. I slept with Frank Kinnaman, and he had got up and left, and I was sleeping in that bed there by that window, and the sill was just about a foot from the level of the ground, and a big old coyote come by, and I let out a scream and jumped out of bed and run and crawled in bed with my grandmother to show him, get protection of the coyote, and she was wondering what the heck had happened, and I told her, and she said, well, fine. And they finally got the coyote killed after killing one of Grandpa's small pigs. Oh, and I don't know what the heck else to tell you.
What about the time that they killed
Go ahead.
I don't remember the whole story, but they killed a bear, and she didn't like bear meat, but they went ahead and cooked it and gave it to her for chicken or something. I forget what it was.
I never heard about the
switched
bear
it.
meat, but I heard about the rock chuck that Grandpa Chris and my dad had killed, and they dressed it out and cooked it, and they had it for dinner. And when they got through eating, why, they asked her what she was eating, and she said, well, I haven't any idea, but it tasted pretty darn good. And her husband said, Grandpa said, well, it was rock chuck. she lost about half of her dinner before she could even think about what she'd ate.
Did Grandpa Chris farm?
He farmed up at Dry Creek. He had about, probably 35, 40 acres of farming land. It was pretty rocky, and there was the Dry Creek run down through about half of it,
Watching spiders.
and it was pretty rough, but they made a pretty good living. They had horses on the range and cattle on the place and cattle on the range, and made a pretty good deal out of it. No, I guess I can tell you a little story about my grandfather. One summer, I called her, wrote him a letter and told him I was coming up, but I didn't say when I was coming up. And I was living down in Hickerman Valley then, and I got on the saddle horse one afternoon, early one morning, and started for Dry Creek. And it was a little late in the afternoon when I got up there, and there's a little hill that you ride over to go down into Dry Creek and up to the house. And I seen a guy walking through the alfalfa field, and he had a gunny sack in each hand. And so pretty soon I looked again, and he was heading right back up over the top of the hill pretty darn fast. And so I was wondering what the heck was going on. I couldn't tell who it was. And when I got up to Grandma's house and got the horse took care of and got in the house and was talking to Grandma and Uncle Allen, and here come Grandpa in, and Grandpa said, "Oh, why in the world didn't you tell me you was coming up today?" And I said, "Well, what's the matter?" He said, "Well, I was just bringing these two 1-gallon jugs of liquor out of my, what they used to call it, distillery up here." And I said, "Well, I didn't know you had a distillery up there." And he says, "Well, I have." And he used to, I found out later that he was bringing the liquor down to my dad in Hickerman and putting it in the chicken coop late at night, and the guy that was supposed to get it would have it out of the chicken coop and took away before daylight the next morning. And that's when hard times was hard times. He made these whiskey all the way from 120 to 190 volt, and he liked it so well. Whenever he wanted to drink a whiskey early in the morning, he'd put up a half a glass of whiskey and break a raw egg into it, and that was his drink for the morning. So I guess that's enough story to think of something else.
What did Grandpa and Grandma Green do? Your Grandpa and Grandma Green.
My Grandpa and Grandma Green, before my time, long time before my time, they ran a slaughterhouse in Hickerman, right in the town of Hickerman. And they delivered meat in a covered wagon with ice for the cooling project of it. And when they was doing that, the lower salmon and upper salmon and power plants was being put in, and they delivered meat and that with that covered wagon. Or, well, it wasn't a covered wagon, it was a built-in refrigerated board wagon. And they would deliver meat to that and deliver meat clear up on top of the hill, which was about 5 or 6 miles. Go up the Vader grade and down the Tupper grade and back into Hickerman. And at this time they was living a mile east of Hickerman, right on what would be the northeast corner of the junction there. And they had the slaughterhouse down at the east end of the farm. And I was big enough at this time that I was down there messing around with them, watching them butcher their hogs. And they'd butcher a hog and scrape it, throw it up on the platform and scrape the hair all off on it. One time Grandpa Green said, "Well, Leland, come here." And I said, "Well, what do you want to see now?" He says, "I'll bet you this pig's tail is longer than your finger." And I said, "Well, I bet it ain't." And he said, "Well, come over here and we'll measure it." So we went over there, and I started to stick my finger down to measure the pig's tail, and he shoved it right up in the hole. And did he lie? And they had the slaughterhouse was just about 50 yards from the vat where they scalded hogs, and they had to put the hogs in a wheelbarrow. One of them had a rope on the front of it, and the other had the wheelbarrow handle, and they pedaled those push those pigs up into the slaughterhouse, and there's where they processed the hogs. And the beef, they didn't shoot them. They run them in a chute, and the guy, Dad or Dutch, one or the other of them, would take a sledgehammer that was there by the kill chute. They'd hit them right in the back of the head, right between the ears, right out close to the front of their head, knock them down, and Grandpa Green would cut their throats as quick as they fell on the floor, and then they would process them there. And that's the way they peddled meat all over Hagelin Valley for years and years.
How old were you when Grandpa Green died? Grandpa and Grandma Green.
Oh, wow.
Do you remember Bud?
Oh.
You don't remember Grandpa and Grandma Green or Chris?
I remember Grandma Green just a little bit, but I don't remember any instances with her or anything. I remember they always said she was a pretty feisty little lady.
Oh, wow. I remember when Grandpa Green died. I think I was about 8 or 10 years old at that time. They had taken he'd had pneumonia, and they sent him to Salt Lake for a checkup. He got down there, and they were checking on the pneumonia, and before they sent him home, they cut off about 3 inches of fat off of the layer of his stomach in about a 2-foot space on there, just to get rid of the excess fat. And when they brought him home, he lived about 3 days, and then he died. And the night when he died, that night, they rolled him in the bedroom, put him up on 3 sawhorses with 4 planks underneath him, laying there naked, bathed in alcohol. Wasn't there regular alcohol? Oh, some kind of an alcohol that they preserved him in.
Formaldehyde?
Formaldehyde. They put formaldehyde all over him, and they kept him there 2 nights before the funeral date was set, and they buried him. And like Bud said, Grandma was kind of a wildfire gal, and him and her had several fights. And one time when I was outside and come in, and Grandma was in there, and I'd done something to Nan, and she went to the house a-bawling, and Grandma started giving me the devil, and I stuck my tongue out at her, and my dad walked in the door about that time, and boy, he grabbed me and he said, "Don't you ever do that to Grandma Green again." And I said, "Well, she asked for it," and he gave me a whipping then and sent me on down home. When we lived down on the old Harry Parsons place, it's about 3/4 of a mile down the road, west of there. But Nan and Coon and I fought hiding hair or half of the time. One time I got mad at Coon, and I had a log chain in my hand, and I wrapped that log chain around her neck, and I got another licking on account of she was teasing me, and I done the punishing for her. Oh no, give somebody else a chance at it.
Okay. Do you remember? Oh, go ahead.
Why wasn't it 1946 when Grandma died? I think it was 1946
About that.
because
We moved
I,
up here in 1940.
I was a senior in high school, and we went down to Hegerman to her funeral, and
You come home from
then
school.
we went back up to Haley that night and played a basketball game. It was one of the tournaments that was playing in.
No, February 26th.
What did she die of?
I don't know. What she
Don't
died.
remember what she died of?
Old age.
Okay. Do you have any memories of them too, Jackie?
Well, let's see. I can remember Grandma Chris sitting in that rocking chair and just rocking back and forth. And she'd tap her foot. And she'd rock and she'd tap her foot. And she'd sit there and she'd fold her arms, and then there was no arms on this little rocking chair, I remember. She didn't have any place for her hands. She'd fold them, or else she'd have them down like this. But she'd sit there, and sometimes you'd think she was asleep. Her eyes was closed, but she never was. She just sat there and rocked back and forth all the time.
She was tying rag rugs together about 50% of her time. Whenever she's sitting in that chair, she'd tie tear rag rugs and then sew them together in the ends and then make a big rug out of them. Put her any size that anybody wanted to make.
What did Grandma Chris and Grandpa Chris die of? Just old age?
Grandpa Chris died of
Gangrene.
gangrene. Grandpa Chris come down with a sore big toe, and Uncle August and my mother and my father took him up to Hazleton to see a doctor up there. And that doctor just left this sock on his foot and rubbed the foot for about half or 3/4 of an hour and told him to bring him back in about a week or 10 days. And so they took him home, and that night, while the toe started to swelling up and hurting him so dang much that he was wanting to know where his pocket knife was at, and my dad says, well, what are you going to do with the pocket knife? He says, I'm going to get rid of that damn toe right now. It's a-killing me. And he went on for about a few days after that, and then they went back to Hazleton again, and the toe was in worse shape, and the doctor just took the sock off and rubbed it, and he told him to go home again. And this time he's only home about 2 weeks, and it got pretty dang worse then. So they took him to a doctor in Gooding, and the doctor there looked at it, and he seemed like he took that toe off. Yeah, he took the toe off that time and sent him back home. And the next time they got to hurting worse, and his foot turned black, and they took him back up to the Gooding doctor, and they cut his leg off just up above the knee to get rid of that inflammation in the blood poison there. And about a day or day and a half later, the doctor called us up from Gooding and told us to get up there, told Mom and them to get up there quick, but he died before they ever got up there.
Okay, how did Grandpa and Grandma Green meet? Your mom and dad. Do you know? Do you know where they met or anything?
They grew up together.
Yeah.
I know Dad always said that he was there when when Mom was born.
Yeah.
So they knew each other from that time. They just grew up together.
No, I didn't know that. Down in Hagerman?
In Hagerman,
Yeah. They used to love to dance, and so they would go down after us kids. There's 2 of us kids, I think, was big enough then. When they went to the dance, they had to take us kids with them, and they was in the old Gridley Hall. It used to be a long dance hall on the south end of town, just across the road from the main street, from the city limit. And they would dance till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. They'd put us kids up on the grandstand there where the orchestra was, and there we spent half of the night sound asleep while they was having all the fun in the world. But one thing about it, I never did see my dad drunk at any of the dances, and boy, some of his old partners really did celebrate, especially Howard Marsh and Dan Durfee and Earl Feast. They had quite a time, because Dad wouldn't drink with them and get drunk, but they all shared alike. And top it off, Dad and Mom used to like to dance so well. They got in a 1-horse buggy one afternoon, late in the evening, drove plumb over to the Clover Creek Schoolhouse in a single rig. They danced all night, drove home the next morning. Oh.
Hmm?
The reason I said that Dad was there when Mom was born was because Grandma was a midwife. Grandma Green was
Grandma
the
Green.
midwife, and she delivered lots and lots of babies in Hagerman, and that's what Grandma Green had delivered Mom, and that's why Dad was there.
Your
Huh.
Grandma Green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My grandpa.
How old was Grandpa then when Grandma was born?
Oh.
How much older was he than Grandma?
Let's see.
5 years, I think. 4 or 5 years.
I don't know how much older.
Were you kids all
About
born in
4.
Hagerman?
Yeah.
I think
They
so.
all were.
I think the little bunch was born down there. I was the first one in the family and had to open the gate for the rest of them. I'm still the littlest one in the family that had to do that on account of that.
I remember when Dude was born up there, they sent Bud and I out to play on that old cistern. Remember that?
Yeah, that old system.
That old cistern, we had to go out and play on that.
I remember the cistern, but I don't
And
remember.
then they finally let us go in and it was all over.
When did Grandpa and Grandma move to Cary? Was that where they moved to?
Yeah.
1940.
What did Grandpa farm in Hagerman? Is that what he did in
Grandpa
Hagerman?
Green.
Who do you mean?
Your dad.
My
Your dad.
Yes, he did some butchering, I guess, before he started farming, but
Yeah.
the part that I remember, he was farming, and then we moved to Cary in 1940, I believe it was, and that's all he did up there was farm.
Okay, tell us about tipping your truck over.
Well, when we moved from Hagerman to Cary, I was riding in a truck with Dutch,
That's right.
Uncle Dutch, and it was a four-wheel trailer, and we got started down a little hill just outside of Richfield, and the trailer got whipping back and forth and tipped over, and all the chickens and pigs and everything that we had in the trailer started getting out, so I jumped out and held up one corner of the trailer so that they could get out, and they hollered at me for letting them out, so I put it back down again. I was only 11 years old, and so we left the stock there at home there in Richfield, at a rancher's house there, and then some of them came back down the next day and got the stock. And Bill and Levon and Potter and I don't know who else. Some of them drove all the cows and stock up from Hagerman up to Cary on with the horses.
How
That-
long did it take him?
I don't remember, 2 or 3 days, I think, if I remember right. I don't remember just how long it took them.
Grandpa and Grandma Green finally sold their home up a mile east of Hagerman and bought the old Courtner place just across the road from them. And when Grandpa Green died, and then Grandma Green died, she had willed 120 acres to Dutch, and Dad and his family, we was up on the hill, and we took a 80-acre sagebrush farm, grubbed the hole, and railed sagebrush off from it, and put it into crops, and we cut posts in Hagerman Valley and hauled them up in a wagon up onto the hill on the right, and fenced the whole 80 acres with poplar trees, poplar posts, which lasted just about 3 years, and we didn't have a cotton picking post hardly sticking up on the whole outfit. And Dad was pretty disgusted over it. And Dutch had the 120 acres down there, and us kids had to go down and help him do the hay on every time, and very low pay for it, but Dad wouldn't have nothing else. Dutch would drive clear up on top of the hill to help us, but there was 4 of us working against him. But Dad said, that's even enough. He said, you don't cost me, you got to live with me anyhow. So that's the way that went.
Where did they move to, Jackie, when they moved to Cary? Did they move out to Fish
They
Creek?
moved out on Fish Creek. The house isn't there any longer.
Burnt down.
And yeah, Peterson burned it down.
Voluntarily.
Yeah.
Larson.
I remember the old home comfort stove that Mom had such a time paying for, and it was in the house, and one day we went out there and it was gone. Somebody, and she really felt bad about that stove being gone. And it was one of the things that she really treasured, and because it was so hard for him to pay for it.
It was a cook
It
stove.
was a cook stove.
I
and it
remember she
had been-
always had her a cup of coffee sitting up on
Yeah.
the warming oven.
Yeah, always had a cup of coffee up there.
Talking about the home comfort stove, we was all home in the house there one afternoon. The salesman come by and come in and knocked on the door, and Mom let him in, and she asked him what he'd like to know, and he said, well, I'm selling home comfort stoves, and cook stoves, and a reservoir on it, and nice slate color, and nice fancy stuff on the oven door, and she said, well, how much is it? And I I forget how much it was. Do you remember,
I
Sue?
don't remember.
I don't know.
This day and age, it wasn't very much, but that time it was hard to come by.
Well, Dad and her finally decided to go ahead and get it, and Mom said, "Well, how long will it take to get it here?" And he said, "Oh, 3 weeks, a little bit better than a month." And she said, "Well, how much you got to have down?" And he said, $10 will take care of it till then. And she said, "Well, I think that we can do it." So Dad and I, we was helping hired buck spud and working in the spud field harder than heck. And spuds is about 2.5 cents a half sack on the ground, and that's where we were working with our wages. And about 8-9 days later, well, here come this home comfort stove, and we never had a penny in the house. And so Mom says, "Well, I can't take that stove." She said, "We haven't got a penny in the house to pay for it." So Dad finally worked around and got enough money out of hired Marsh to make a down payment on the dang thing. I forget, $10, $8, something like that. We didn't have a dime. And he got the money from hired Marsh and made the first down payment. We finally made the rest of them.
How long did they live at Fish Creek? Well, you guys, okay. All right, that's when you met Ellis then, when you're living out there, wasn't it?
Yeah, the first year I stayed in Hegarman, finished 8th grade down there, and then I came up in the summer after school was out. And then met Alice that summer.
Sorry, Dave, when
He wouldn't leave me alone.
Even took you down to the sheep camp to spend the night one night then, huh?
then while I was in the service, I got a bawling out letter from Grandma. She really chewed me up one side and down the other. And every mattress.
She thought she
What
was,
for?
No, didn't think I had wings strong enough to.
Yeah, she said
Make
his
it go
wings
all right.
wasn't strong enough to get married.
I was 25 years. I was 25 years old then.
Is that how old you were when you got married?
Yeah.
Was 25. How old were you?
19. Spring chicken. So we'd gone together for
4.5, 5 years.
5 years.
I didn't know that. Oh. Okay, and you guys had a house out there too, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
I can
Come from
remember
over here
that.
on Silver Creek.
I remember that.
Yeah, and then Charlie and Jeanette had one.
Everybody got botulism poison.
Yeah. Eating
Eating some salmon or something.
When was that?
when they moved our house from Silver Creek over here. Up on them got sick of
I
them.
know what I got for you tonight
Canned
for your
salmon.
supper. Some sardines.
Come on. Oh,
I was going to spoil
What-
you rotten. I
What do you
told
want? Lumpy Dick and sardines? He'll never go again.
we'll have it for dinner
Raisin
tomorrow.
milk cookies.
Oh, and another hard time story when Grandpa Chris and Grandma Chris was living up on Dry Creek. Why, I was in high school and we was having a pretty rough time of putting me through high school, and Grandpa found out about it, and so he sent, from the first year through the high graduation, he sent me $5 a month, which was a lot of money at that time, and it really did help me out. And where I fell down, when I got out of school big enough to go back and help him, he had a life insurance policy that he was having a hard time with. Instead of me going ahead and helping him get that, I let him lose a 25-year modern Woodman life insurance, and I regret it to this very day.
Huh.
You spoke about him bringing that bootleg whiskey down. Don't I remember Dad telling about him bringing the load down and storing it in the manure pile?
Yeah, they did.
One winter, all winter long it was stored there.
I don't know.
That'll keep it hot.
To make it
That's-
ferment better.
Yeah, make it
That's
ferment.
how they got Maddie through college at Albion.
Was his
was
whiskey?
with his whiskey, and Mom said when she found out about it, she was really mad
She wouldn't have made it if she hadn't had
No.
that.
that he put her through with bootleg whiskey. But they had to do what they had to do those
Yeah.
days.
Ooh,
Okay.
when this
When were you guys baptized? Now, Mom and Grandma and Grandpa Green and Bill, right, were baptized at the same time. And they always
Well,
say
if they
Dad
were-
was too chicken.
if they were baptized together, my dad and my mother, and I don't know who else it was, they was baptized in Billinger Creek
Yeah.
in October. Dang near froze today.
Isn't that when I was baptized with them in 1936?
Yes, that was okay.
That was in 1936 when I was baptized with them
Okay, and it was down in Billinger.
down the Billinger Creek in Coldwater.
Yeah.
And Brother Chatterton baptized me. I don't know how many of the others he baptized, but he was there. Doing it.
To top that story off, the coming spring, I was baptized over in the White Arrow Springs in a hot water tank. My wife can't live it down to this day that I was bathed in the hot water tank by Jack Allen. But that's when it happened, so I had to go get it done, and it tickled me to death. Jack Allen says, well, I don't know, I might drown you. He said, you're bigger than I am, but you done a pretty good job of ducking me under.
Where were you? Oh, go ahead.
Since I've been married, my wife tells the kids about the fire that we had in our bathroom. Said that we was lucky though because it never did reach the house.
Where was that?
That was in Cary. We didn't have electricity or running water or anything. We had to.
Now this is you and Grace? Or Grandpa and Grandma's?
Grandpa and Grandma,
Okay.
my mother and father.
Yeah, okay.
And we had to carry water from over by. What was it?
The
Phillips?
springs over by Phillips's.
The springs over by Phillips. We generally did that with the wagon, carried it in the cans back and forth. All the water that we had to use for drinking water over there.
And washing and everything else.
I don't remember when we got electricity. I know I never did see a television until I was in the service. 1951, the first television that I saw after we got married.
We got our first children when we was living down in it, after we moved from Silver Creek over.
Mm-hmm.
Out there on
Folks had
Fish
it
Creek?
Before we did though. Folks had theirs before
Yeah.
we did.
Was that at Fish Creek?
Uh-huh.
Oh, was it?
Mhm. Yeah, they had television out there.
How long did they live
Couple
out in
years
Fish
before
Creek?
we did. Well, until they left to go to Utah, and that was, let's see,
38? No,
no,
35 or 36.
oh no. We
No,
didn't come up here
it
till
was-
1940.
Oh, I mean, yeah,
What was that?
58. 55, 56, somewhere along there.
It was about that time, somewhere around there. Because I got
Yeah.
out of service in '53, and we came to Provo, and it was after that when they came to.
I
Yeah,
like to work at this factory down here in 58, and they
Yeah.
just come back. And
yeah, that's when they moved back, was the year that you went to work
They
down.
we went to
lived
work
down
at
here.
school, and I went to work down there.
I think they lived down here 4 years.
That's when they
Down
had
in
that wreck
Sandy?
in that dust storm coming home.
Yeah, Mary and Dude had a bad accident going back in a dust storm, going back to Idaho.
Okay, so they moved. When did they move to Utah?
About 57, 58, somewhere around there.
Well, it must have been about 50, they lived down there about 2 years.
2
didn't they?
years,
Must have been
must have
down
been
about
about
56
56.
then.
Okay, and Grandpa worked on a mink farm down there, didn't he?
Yeah.
For Duplers. Duplers furs.
Oh, and
And he,
And then he worked for Aunt Teresa too there
Yeah,
for a while.
I went down there and lived with him for one spring. Worked for Condi Salad down there. It was all right.
he said he really enjoyed working with the mink down there. One of the best jobs he ever had, he said. He really enjoyed it.
oh, one morning, my dad and mother got up pretty early, and they decided to go down and see Uncle Clinton out. They was working on they was working at the big creek down by. Can't think of it right now, but anyhow, we went down there to see them, and I'll think of it pretty soon. But Dad and Uncle Clinton, we was down there putting 2/3 of the day and had dinner with him and caught some fish out of the creek. And so when we decided to go home, my Uncle Clint and Dad had been drinking the cotton picking nuts. That Dad was pretty well stewed, and Mom wouldn't let him drive the horses home. Said if he drives the horses home, said we ain't going home like tonight. And she was going to make him stay in the back end of the buggy, stretched out back there. And so I said, well, if Dad's going back there, I am too. I was about 6, 7 years old. She said, well, I'll drive home if you stay back there with him. And so that's the way we got home that night, finding Dandy there. And then another time.
Okay,
Dad-
just a minute, Dad.
Okay.
Okay, we have bud chewing jelly beans.
Moonshine, it's the Easter rabbit.
Oh, oh, okay, okay. Okay, Dad, finish your story then.
Oh, another time, Dad had been working somewhere, and when he come home that night, he was pretty. Not that my dad was a drunkard, but he did like to get happy part of it once in a while. So this time, when he come home, he was pretty well soured, and he put the horses away and went out to the wood pile, put in there dark to get some wood for the stove in there. And when he walked by the wood pile, he picked up a chunk of wood about 3 foot long and about 18 inches through, and walked through the door. And here she said, "Here, Mom, put this thing in the stove." Mom pushed him away from the log over backwards and crawled right in the middle of it and just slapped his face for heck's sake. Said, "Don't try that the other time, Jack."
Okay, Buck, give us some of your memories of Grandpa and Grandma.
Well, I remember one time they had got upset at each other about something. I don't know what it was. His dad turned to start to go out the door, and his mom picked up a knife and threw at him, and it hit in the door sill and just wiggled back and forth just like that as he walked out the door. Can't think of anything right off.
Okay, when they were down in Utah, you spent more time with them then probably, didn't
Yeah.
you? You were in Provo?
We lived in Provo at the time, and we had 2 kids, I think. At that time, we used to visit with them quite a while. Teresa and Lou used to take them traveling quite often and take them all around the country, trips, and they enjoyed it.
Where did you meet Grace?
In Cary, she come off her mission, and she had her sister Benita Kirkland that lived there, and she came up to visit with her, and we met. And 4 months later we were married, and 2 weeks later I was in the service.
And you left her while you went?
She went back to Savannah, Georgia, after spending some time up in Fort Lewis, Washington with me while I was in basic training. And then after I got out of the service, I went down to Savannah and got in. We moved to Provo. She didn't want to go to Idaho, and I didn't want to live in Georgia, so we split 40-60. Lived in Provo because her brother was going to school there in Provo. So we settled down there and been there ever since. We now have 4 kids.
And how many grandkids?
3.
I remember you telling about when you was going to school. One week you ate beans, and the next week you ate macaroni. Then you start over with beans again. Change off every week.
Pretty good life. I think I was making $65 a month at the time from schooling money from the government, and I was working for $1 an hour at a mattress and furniture place where we made mattresses and covered furniture.
Okay, when Grandpa and Grandma came back to Cary, what did they do? Did Grandpa retire then?
Yeah, that's when he retired. That's when they came back and.
And look at me looking.
Oh. And well, let me back up a ways. You're right on top of me.
Well, I backed it off. But now I can keep it the same for all of you.
And he didn't do anything for a while, but then he started taking care of the cemetery out there, and he liked that. He enjoyed keeping that nice and green.
Okay, do you guys remember any of the Christmases or any holidays or things like that? What you did, where you went?
I remember the best toy that I remember ever getting when we lived in
Sure.
Hagerman was a little
There.
toy dump truck. It had little electric lights on the front of it, and I thought that was the greatest toy a person could ever get. We was lucky we didn't get a lot of stuff because they weren't making much money, but what we got we enjoyed and had a good time with it.
I remember one Christmas Eve we just got through eating supper and was sitting around the table and chit-chatting, and it was getting kind of late in the evening, just about after dark, and then we was talking about getting Christmas presents and how many we thought we would get, and so Dad says, well, how do you think they're going to get here? And we said, well, Santa Claus is supposed to come down through the chimney to bring them out. About that time, while the bedroom window in the north bedroom of the house clambered shut, and Dad said, well, there he is right now. And us kids beat it in there, and there were some toys scattered over the bed in the bedroom in the north window. And we hardly know to this day how come that window went down, because Dad said all the wind blew. He was telling somebody later that the wind blew the window down, and we heard it. But we don't know for sure whether somebody done it or whether the wind really did do it. So we had a nice bunch of toys on the bed when we went in to get them.
I remember one time Bill was doing something with the cows. I don't remember what he was doing, but he threw a rock at this one cow here in the eye and blinded her.
Audrey.
We called the old cow Audrey, and one time she fell in the big cistern that we had behind the house. It was about 12, 14 feet deep.
Yeah, it was 12 feet. It was more than that, probably 14.
We had to build a scaffolding for her to get her back up out of there. She had fallen in.
To push her up. I don't know who wants to put that.
There's another old cow that we had. I don't remember how she got hurt.
Oh.
We got her one hip knocked down. She was
Limpy.
we called her Limpy.
Yeah.
Called her Limpy, and she limped all the rest of her life. Yeah.
We put 3 calves on her at a time.
And we always had calves on her. I remember one time when we lived in Cary, I was milking a kind of a flighty cow next to Limpy, and we had a calf on the other side of Limpy sucking, and I reached around to see if the calf had finished or got all the milk. It made Limpy jump just a little bit, and I jumped. I thought she was going to kick me, and the cow that I was milking kicked me and knocked me down into the gutter and stepped on my face and cut my head, my nose right there, and still got the scar right between my eyes. Jack literally was waiting for me to go to mutual that night. He didn't make it to mutual that night. Well, when you get down in the gutter, you get pretty messy and blood and everything. I was quite a mess by the time she got through with me.
Oh, I'll tell you some of my pranks when I was a boy and still at home. I was out in the corral, and the cows, putting all of them was laying down and resting pretty easy, and 2 old cows were laying pretty close together. One they called Daisy and the other one, it was Maud. And they'd laying pretty close together, the rear end pretty close together, so nothing that I'd do but tied those 2 old cows' tails together and then made them get up, see which one could pull the hardest. About the first thing that happened, the old Jersey cow lost her tail. And I lost my bottom when Dad got home that night. And then another time I was in the barn and had a little black saddle horse, we called her Beauty, and all messing around and combing her down and making her look pretty, and walked behind her and she raised up her tail and was taking a crap, and about the time she got through I stuck the curry comb under her tail and she kicked 2 boards off of the back end of the barn before I could get her turned around and get the skirt come off from under her, and then I got another licking that night. So I had my turn at home.
Might tell you something about that. He was kind of a community veterinarian because every time somebody had a cow or a horse or something that was having trouble calving or having trouble having their offspring, they always came to Dad to go and help deliver. And I remember a lot of times we went with him and he reached just as far up with his arm as he could. Sometimes the calves or colts would be breech and you'd have to turn them around up there, but it seemed like everybody come to Dad for the veterinary work. He was always willing to help and take care of them.
One time he was called to come see what was wrong with the cow that was trying to calve, and he got down there and he put his arm in there to see what was going on, and all he could feel was a mess of bones in there, just kind of tangled up, and he finally worked around and this calf, he finally got it out, and the calf was dead, turned inside out. The guts was inside out and the feet was just dangling around. And that was the first and the last experience he ever had of anything like that. That was down to Ed Thompson's place.
Well, I can remember coming to Cary, and I don't remember too much, but other than my feet were cold when Grandpa came and got us in the sleigh one year.
Oh, yeah.
Down.
Yeah, they never used to clean the lane out up there. And geez, it'd be 2 weeks sometimes it would be snowed in. You
Up
know,
on-
the bus couldn't get around.
Up on the hill there?
Yeah, out here.
Out of
on
Fish Creek.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd finally made a little sled that we went down to the end of the lane. And what was the name of the horse?
Old gray one.
Yeah. Anyway, then he'd meet us down there at night and take us down every morning. And it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
I'll stretch that story out a little bit further. When we go for a little joyride with this horse, I can't think of her name either. This box didn't have anything to stop when the horse stopped, where this box sled would run right up behind her legs, her hind legs. So once in a while she'd have to go to the bathroom, and so if you pulled up on the reins, where she'd stop and everything would go right in the front seat. You'd see the people scrambling out of the front part of the sled.
Was that Susan, the one we rode?
Yeah.
It wasn't her, no.
No, that
Now
was
she's
that
bigger
was-
than Susan.
that
Yeah,
was the gray.
Well, Susan was gray.
Yeah, but the
She
horse
wasn't very big.
The horse wasn't. The
Oh,
horse.
oh.
Well, Grandma had a bunch of gooseberry bushes too out to Fish Creek, didn't she?
Uh-huh. Yeah,
I can remember.
Prune plum trees too.
yeah. They're not there anymore either. They just cleaned that whole strip
Nothing
off
there
out
anymore
through
but
there.
green
There's
now.
nothing there. Up above the canal, they had that all into dry farm, or they're not dry farm because they got sprinklers
It
up
was Nellie
there.
on my mind, but it wasn't Nellie.
Well, Grandpa and Grandma went fishing a lot too, didn't
Yeah.
they?
Mhm. Then every fall they went up and picked chokecherries.
Go get our own Christmas trees each year,
Where did you go to do that?
just up in the mountains to the north of the house, generally northeast up in there. I think we go up in there. I remember a lot of fun we had when we take the fish net and catch the fish. Mom would cook them for us, but for those that ate them, but she would never eat them because she never did like fish. So she never did eat them.
Where did you go fishing then? Where this you're talking about?
It was up Fish Creek, generally up in Sparks, I think is where we generally
Yeah.
went.
I remember when they used to go fishing down in Hegman, putting there every Sunday. There's about 4 or 5 different families putting there all the time, and that was a horse and wagon days, and they would go out to Bryant's, just a little ways above the Salmon River upper dam. You go out there and get there as early as could, and all the men and the boys was big enough to go fishing. While they fished till about 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we'd have a great big meal and head home that night, and that included Chatterton's and Howard Marsh and his family, and Earl Fish and his family, and my dad and his family, and Dan Durfee, and I think that was the main bunch. They went dang near every Sunday. Instead of going to church, they went fishing.
Since you were the only girl, what did you get picked on? Did your brothers pick on you?
Oh, good
no,
Lord.
she didn't. She didn't get picked on at all.
I'm lucky to be alive today, I'll tell you.
She helped me get out of a fight once.
Yeah.
Guy beating up on me, and she come and took him off of me.
Protected. Oh, I know. That was them Boyer boys, and one of
Boyer
them
boys.
died the other day.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'll teach him.
Yeah.
I knew that would happen sooner or later.
I was telling Alice about that when you come. You'd taken his skates or something down there at school that day. He come up. Both of them came chasing you around that.
Out there on the sidewalk.
Yeah, around on them steps up the south side of that grade school down there. Jeez, they bounded up those steps like crazy. I chased them away. I spent all my whole 6 years of chasing Dude down, trying to get Dude back in, keep him in first grade.
She's always talking.
He didn't want to stay in school.
No, he didn't want to stay in school. He didn't want to go. And every recess and every noon there was that canal down west of the
Is that dude?
schoolhouse of Dude. Because he never even wanted to get on the bus of a morning.
I didn't.
And he'd go down there and hide in that canal. It was dry at the time. And he'd go down there and hide. And the teacher'd come and get me to go find him. And one day he just took off and left school and walked home. And he went up past Son Thompson's house on one of the streets, happened to get that street to walk back up on the hill. And Son signed going home, so he took him on home. So that was the day that Mom decided to keep him out of school then. But he wouldn't stay in school, save his soul.
That was at Hagerman.
Yeah.
Our winter fun consisted mostly of tobogganing up on the hill to the, up to the northwest of where we lived
Yeah.
there. The hill up there that was good for tobogganing.
We
had
called
a lot
it
of fun on.
Blueberry Hill, remember?
Yeah.
The song was popular and we named it Blueberry Hill.
I remember Mom and Dad and Mrs. Rudd. I believe Miss Peterson, I'm not sure if Miss Peterson was there, but they came down over the hill and their lineup was all different. By the time they got to the bottom, they were sitting in different places. So somebody, I remember who it was, thought lost their teeth. We had a lot of fun up there on the hill, and then one year Bill gave us a greyhound dog, and we'd take her out chasing rabbits in the snow.
Kyle.
Yeah.
Finally coming down, but she was sure, I bet you're going back up. Oh, that was the ball.
Well, they had made big humps in that trail. And every time you hit one of those humps, you went
Look over that way.
faster. And they, one time when Marion was up, I guess it must have been while Bill was in the service.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was Ivan Rudd and there was myself and
Yeah, that's-
and Marion, and I don't know who else.
I think Ellis was
Somebody
there.
else was on there.
I'm telling the same story.
That
And
time you put your legs down.
yeah, we got it
Well,
going
that
so
was-
fast and hit every time we hit a bump, we went that much faster and I got scared and put both legs out. Boy, we stopped, let me tell you.
Funny she didn't have any legs left.
Yeah, I was out of them for a couple of weeks. I don't know how come I don't have knee trouble. We really spilled.
That kind of thing didn't happen back then. When your knees, you didn't have,
Yeah.
didn't have knees.
You just
You
got up and
just-
kept going.
You just had to suffer anyway, so.
Oh, I remember when I was up to Kerry one winter and they had about 3.5, 4 foot of snow, and I never had been on a pair of skis, and Charlie come around and he said, "Leland, you want to go skiing?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd like to go skiing." So I didn't know where his skis was or what kind of paraphernalia you had to even go skiing on. So pretty soon here he come with a saddle horse with a saddle on it and about a 50-foot lariat rope and a pair of skis, and he said, "Here, put these things on and they'll give you a ride." So I got them tied on and fairly good. I thought this was fairly good. And so got on and he started going down the road, down the field, just to jog along pretty good. I was doing pretty good, and then pretty soon he put that mare into a high run. One of my legs went one way, and the other leg went the other way, and that was the last time I was ever on a pair of skis.
Dude put me on the toboggan behind that horse one time. And we went on down to the main road, and when we come back, from toward Uncle Bert's place, and he was coming in the lane there, and the rope was pretty long, because when he turned into that lane, threw me with the toboggan clear over into the fence. Really buggered me up, I'll tell you. I'm telling you the truth. It's when I'm alive. When I think about it.
Okay, but when you and Grace got married, that was when Dad and Mom went through the temple too, wasn't it?
Yes.
What day was that?
February 27th, 1951.
Okay. And then Grandpa and Grandma went through when Dude got married, didn't they?
And
That was
they
in
come-
52 or something, wasn't it?
And they come down to Provo and visit with us on the honeymoon. Mom and Dad was with them.
Oh, with Dude and Mary?
Yes.
Did we go around this way up to the Idaho Falls Temple when he took you up there? When he took Bud and Grace up to the Idaho Falls Temple, when was it? October? What date? Month?
February.
It was
February.
in February, and we was driving along pretty fast, and the old car kept sliding off the side of the road a little bit, and kept sliding all the time, and it didn't look like there was that much thicker sliding on an ice on the highway. So I stopped and got out and just about fell on my fanny just by opening the door. So we got back in and cut the car down to about 20 miles an hour, and we made it into Idaho Falls safe and sound and back home. Thank the Lord.
The night before that, Ray Kirkman and I had went to priesthood, and when we got home, got over to the Nedas, Grace said that she had forgotten left her temple recommending Goody. Well, Ray and I had to go to Goody to get the recommend. We got back about 4 o'clock in the morning.
That was the day before you got married?
That was the day before we got married. The morning of the day that we got married.
No.
And then we had to go on over to Idaho Falls.
You served in Korea, didn't you?
Yes.
Where did Bill serve?
Most of his time was spent in Hawaii. He was a cook, and after he got over to Hawaii, they found out that he was flat-footed, so they wouldn't send him out with the infantry. So he trained to be a cook, and so he was there for almost 4 years. I believe 3 or 4 years there in Hawaii, where he served most of his time. I served part of my time in Japan, and I was in Japan for 2 weeks, taking a schooling, chemical and biological schooling, and then went over to Korea and spent from October till October 51 to February 52 in Korea, and then went back over to Japan and spent a year in Japan. Bruce, our oldest boy, was 13 months old when I first saw him when I came home.
That would be
When he was born, we was just in the process of moving back from Korea to Japan. It was 2 weeks before I knew that he was born.
Had she gone back to her folks?
Yeah, she was living back in she weighed I think just barely over 100 pounds when I came home from out of service. I think it was about 102 pounds when I came home.
She's gained a little weight since then, though.
All right. Ellis, tell us something about your wife.
Whoa, boy.
Oh,
You got a wide
I
open,
better not.
wide open safe.
Let her tell it.
Ken's putting you on the spot now,
Yeah.
boy.
Yep.
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything bad about
Well,
her.
Now,
see, you're not supposed to tell anything bad. There's nothing bad to tell.
Well, what can I tell? There's nothing good.
Scared to tell anything bad and nothing good to tell.
Yeah, there you are.
Ellis's mother lived down on in the southeast corner. She bought I think it was an acre or half acre of ground from Dad and built a house there. She lived there by the Gitterleys.
That's where we spent our honeymoon.
Yeah, yeah.
in your parents' house?
Yeah, just
In Grandma's house. We only had 2 days. He had to go back to New York. You went to, wasn't it? You
Yeah.
shipped out.
Boston. Left from Boston.
You were in the service?
Mhm.
He went overseas too. I don't know where.
Where did you go?
Oh, I went in from Boston Harbor. I went to Liverpool, England, on the Queen's Mary. And after we get to Liverpool, they put us on a train and sent us down to Southampton. And they put us on a boat out there in the English Channel. We sit out there for about 2 weeks, eating Boston baked beans.
Straight from Boston.
You won't eat baked beans
And then
today.
let's see. Then they put us on another railroad train, or we went from there to France, to Le Havre, France. We stayed there in a tent city for, I don't know how long, a month or so, I guess. Then we moved up to Regensburg, Germany, and was in a, what they call a displaced persons camp. We guarded all the people who was in different places around, if they had any prison there. And then we went from there up to Czechoslovakia to another displaced persons camp. And they moved us back down to Le Havre, France, and we left from there on the boat to go to the South Pacific, and we got just down around the Strait of Gibraltar, and they radioed the ship that the war was over there for us to turn around and come back. So that's where we just turned around there and come back to New York.
You really didn't have to fight then.
No. I was up on the front wall maybe for, I don't know, a couple of days, but I didn't see any real action.
Now, you were married then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been only
We
married
got
just a
married
couple
2nd
of
of March
days.
in 1945. And then I went overseas and came back and got discharged in February of 46.
You were married in when? 43? 40?
45.
45. So you were just part a year then. So. And what did you do?
Oh, the thing to do then was you stayed home. You never. I worked down here for Patterson's in the store and in the cafe. And just waited for him to come home, and then he worked for Melford Sparks for a while. And we was without a car. I remember we walked back and forth to town when we had to go to town. Finally got us a car.
What was your first car?
The first car was that old green thing that we...
Studebaker.
I think it was.
broke down on the way home. You know.
Anyway, when we was working for Miller Spark, we lived in a old house down there on the corner by Simpson's, across the creek there. Went to getting ready to go to bed one night, and we heard something under the bed, and we got looking around. There was an old pack rat in there. And she just getting undressed, and she jumped up in the middle of the bed and was crawling around on her hands and knees on top of the bed trying to see where that back rat had gone. And pretty quick the back rat's tail come out from under the springs like that and waved in her face. She about flipped. I guess it was a broom, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I took after him finally, got him and peeled all the hair off his tail, and that made him really mad. And he'd come after you and give him a swat, and he'd turn around and go back the other way. And finally, what did we do? Get him outside, or did we kill him inside?
No, I think you killed him inside there.
I don't remember.
But he'd come in through the wall, broke right in through the wall.
That house
Yeah.
was in the
Found
mountain.
out where the hole was. He'd come right in through the wall.
Come in from outside, and all you could smell was black rat.
Oh,
Oh, fun times.
Well, you beat the pee out of him, you're bound to find
I finally got it.
that.
That place was full of them.
you told this afternoon about your brothers chasing you with mice too.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
That
not.
was just nightmares that she had.
Yeah, you bet.
We certainly wouldn't treat our little sister that way.
Anything she got, she asked for it.
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
Well, it was fun trying to keep alive out there.
What was Grandpa and Grandma's first car?
My grandpa and grandma.
Your mom and dad.
My mom and dad.
Big man.
Model T, Model A, Model A Ford. And they had it up on the top of the hill in the rim off. One day we was down to Grandpa and Grandma Green's. That was after Grandpa and them died, and we went down to see Dutch and Man. And Dutch was out in the field irrigating, and so Dad and I walked out there to see how I was coming, and 120 acre field, and he was on the way on the other side of it. And Dad and Dutch wanted to walk through the field to see pasture, and the cows was in the pasture. And Dutch said, well, Leland, why don't you drive that Model T in for me, so I won't have to come back out and get it. And I said, Dutch, I never drove a car in my life. Oh, he said, there's nothing to it. All you got to do is step on the clutch and push the emergency ahead. So he got me in it, got it started, and I got across the car gate and out into the main road. And going down the main road, and I had to turn right to turn around, get into the yard, and then I had to turn around the end of the barn. And I was going to put it in the barn, and when I went around the end of the barn, I started towards the garage door, and I just looked over the side there and forgot where I was going again, and I stepped on the gas and run into the side of the barn door, knocked out a headlight and blowed out a tire, and boy, I thought I'd had it. Dad come in, and Des and Dad come in, and they said, what have you been doing, son? And I said, well, I told you I never drove this dang thing before. I said, well, Dad started laughing, and Dad said, well, there ain't nothing of it. You told him to do it.
Dad never did learn to drive, did he? I never did see him drive.
Dad?
Oh, yeah, he
Oh,
drove.
yeah, he drove.
Did he?
After we got that green pickup from Mint Peterson, you know, you make
They
trip
had
or
no
two
yellow-
back to Hagerman with
I
it.
had no yellow Chevrolet.
Hit that horse that one time.
I guess that's right. He did drive some. Mom never did
No.
learn to drive. Dad had his teeth taken out when he was young. I don't know how old he was. I guess what, in his 40s or
Yeah,
50s?
he's probably in his 40s.
He had his teeth taken out, and he never could get them to fit right, so he never would wear them. He could, after a while, he could go like that and touch his chin up to his nose. Kids all like to see him do that, so he was doing that all the time.
That's nothing I can do, don't.
You hit
Just a
chin.
minute, just a
He'd
minute.
touch his, he'd touch
Yeah,
his
he
chin,
can touch his chin.
chin right up to
His chin to his
Uh-huh.
nose.
touch his chin right here,
Is it this
up to
kind
his
right
nose.
Well, Pa can't do that yet.
No, I can't do it yet anyhow. I can lick my nose with a tongue if I have to, but I...
Well, he had his teeth out. Maybe you could
Oh, I might do
you
that
know.
too with my teeth out. I
Yeah,
never
because
did try.
Dad had his teeth out, and that's the reason he could do that.
Yeah, I could not do that with both teeth.
But we certainly inherited his chin, didn't we?
Dad's is getting more as he loses some weight.
I remember Dad telling the story about sometime when he lived in Hagelin, they had this bird dog. I think she was a red and white bird dog. But whenever anybody come to the door, well, she'd go over and put her mouth over their hand and hang on to their hand. And this lady comes selling hosiery, I guess it was, there one time, and there was nobody at the house, and this dog come over to this lady to take her by the hand, and the lady threw all of her hose at her and took off running out to the car, and Dad had to come in out of the field to recover her boxes and things for her. She was scared of the dog.
Okay, when Grandma died down in the Jerome Hospital, didn't she? Did she just, she had just a heart attack? Is that what they figured?
Her heart just exploded, they said.
Yeah, she went down. We took her down for some tests, is all. She had spent a night or two. She had real burning bad pains in her chest, and even in the afternoon. And so we took her down for just Dr. Neer sent over for some test run, and she's down there a couple of days, and was going to come home the next day, and then it just exploded that night. They said it just a massive heart attack is what it was. But she had not had. Maybe for, off and on for maybe a month, she'd had those pains in there, or that burning thing.
Did Grandma have sugar diabetes?
Mm-hmm.
Did she have insulin every day? Did she have to take?
No, she never did take insulin.
No, she just watched.
She took Airnase by mouth, but she never did take.
Every day, didn't she?
Yeah,
Remember,
it had that test tape she used.
when she'd get those pains, sweat would come out on
Oh,
her
yeah.
face and up her forehead.
So it hurt so bad.
My dad and I made her have a fatal heart attack one summer when we were living up on top of the hill. Dad and I like to go fishing a whole lot of time, so we got up this morning and decided we wanted to go fishing, and she said, "Well, you're not going fishing again on this Sunday." And Dad said, "Well, we are, and got our angling worms and everything." And when we got ready to go and got on our horse and got our fishing poles and everything, took off, why, she says, "I hope you drown." So we said, "Okay, Mom, we'll be seeing you," and went down to Upper Salmon Falls and fished till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We rode our saddle horses down there and tied them up and fished into the falls. And, we caught 8 pretty nice trout, about from 3 to 4 and 5 pounds, and got back home and rode up to the door and up to the gate of the yard. And Mom was standing in the door, and Dad said, "Well, what the heck's the matter with Mom?" And her eyes were just redder than heck, and her cheek was kind of flushed. And she said, "I've been a-bawling all afternoon, afraid that you guys had drowned." And after me saying that, she said, "It really broke my heart." She said, "The next time you want to go fishing, go fishing."
When we had Mom's funeral, we had to get Dad out of the hospital. Where was he at? Jerome?
Jerome.
We went down to Jerome and got him out of the hospital so that we could attend the funeral. I think he was so sedated he actually didn't really know what was going on.
Remember that? Somebody even said you ought to wait for a day or two because they figured Grandpa would go then,
Yeah.
didn't they?
Yeah.
But he managed to go another 10 years
Yeah.
or so. I don't know just how long. He lived quite a while after.
He died drunk too, didn't he? Yeah.
Mhm.
He died in the hospital there.
Yeah.
I think most of us expected Dad to die first because he had so much I guess it was heart trouble or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Angina.
He could just
Is
be-
that what he died? Is that what they listed for him?
he had a stroke. And
Yeah.
What was that stuff
It
you
was
used, what was that stuff you used to carry around with him all the time?
Pneumonia.
Ammonia.
yeah.
I remember one morning Dad and I drove a bunch of cows down to Sheldon Parks' lake to give them water. We didn't have any well or nothing on around our place, so we had to drive the cows down there every night and morning to water them. And Dad always had a ammonia bottle in his pocket wherever we went. And so I was down there watching the cows drink, and I looked around and no Dad right there close. So I looked in another direction there, and there he was laying all stretched out. And the time I got over to him, while he was shaking a little bit, and he kind of motioned for me to go away, that he's going to make it out all right. And so I left him alone. But that's the first experience that I ever had with him. And when we did give him the ammonia before he got plumb up and around, though. But that's the first experience I ever had with him. And then another time we was up, he had the ammonia with him. This other time we was up pulling sagebrush with a pole and a chain and the horses, and Dad, I was holding on to the pole and wrapping it around the sagebrush to pull it, and I said, Dad, them brush are just about too big for me to hold this stick around. Oh, he said, you're doing all right. What's the matter with you? I said, okay. And about the third sagebrush after that, well, I wrapped it around there, and he spoke to Sam and Eagle, two great big 1,600-pound horses, and they stepped up a little harder to pull on the sagebrush, pretty big, and a dang pole come out of my hand and hit him right in the back of the head and cold cocked him there and knocked him out for probably 3 or 4 minutes. And I finally thought about the
ammonia.
pneumonia then, and so I gave him a shot of that, just stuck it under his nose, and then in a few seconds, well, he started breathing again. He said, well, that's enough for today, son. Let's go home with Jaggerwood what we got. That was quite a chore.
To get our firewood each year, we'd go out in the east of the house and tear up or dig up sagebrush to burn for the winter. Firewood and keep the house warm, I guess.
We were talking about that the other night, how we put big, long stacks of sagebrush.
They were
Did it burn very long?
Oh, pretty
Oh,
good.
right fast.
That's what I think.
Some of them are that big around, but
Yeah.
they burn quite a little while.
It was good firewood.
Good hot fire while it lasted. But, in order to have enough firewood, we had from 8 to 10 loads of sagebrush stacked up. And that was about my first job when I got off of the cockeyed school bus, come home to go cut the nightwood for the fire.
Your big bunch wouldn't last through the winter?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
they hauled enough. And,
just stacked it up in a big row along the thing.
yeah.
So that was the only heat then that you had,
Coal.
was just one fire?
Well, all
One
that
heater.
was, yeah, they bring coal with it.
And then we had the home
Yeah.
comfort to go along with it at that time.
Oh, so you had two
Two
stoves
A
in the
heat- A
house.
heater and a cook stove.
Heater and the cook stove in the kitchen.
And Bill inherited your job after he got
Yeah.
old enough, because I can remember coming home from school and he'd have to go cut that. I don't know how Charlie got out all that
I don't
wood
know.
chopping.
Charlie got back pretty good. He tried
He
now
was-
fighting some cotton picking like he couldn't do
Well,
nothing.
he
but
and
get.
Bill fought a lot too. Charlie was sick all the time. You know, remember he had tonsillitis and first one thing and then another, and he was. That's how he missed all that, I guess.
Oh,
And
man.
when he was in the 8th grade, he missed more school than he attended. Either sickness or playing hooky.
Yeah.
So he finally just quit.
I remember the first time I played hooky the only time. Gone all day, 3 of us. And I got home, Dad gave us a licking and give me a licking and said, don't you ever try that again. But It was fun while it lasted, and then Mom wouldn't give me a note to go to school and an excuse to go to school, what I had done. And when we got down there, and the superintendent asked me where I'd been, and I said, well, it's darn hard to tell. I said, we had a rather wandering day, and I said, well, we finally ended up at home, is all I can tell you.
Did he let you back in?
Now he let me back in. I didn't have to really tell him that I wanted to hook him. One of the other kids got a dang good spanking with playing hooky. Wilford Tupper and I forget the other kid's name. No, I don't know. I lived back across the road and down the road away from the old Harry Portion place when he lived in that house.
What was your first car, Bud?
My first car?
Mm-hmm.
My first car was my own was when I got out of the service. I used the folks' car all the time when I was single. The first car that I had was a Crosley. It had 2 seats with it. My brother-in-law and his wife and Grace and I one time went up to Timpanogos Cave, and we got within about 3 blocks of the cave going up the road, and it wouldn't go any further, so the rest of them had to get out and walk, and I drove the car on up to the cave. It was fun to drive, but it was only about 4 feet wide. It was a little tiny car. First car that I remember most was about a 37 Ford. It was about a 37 Ford, black one that I had. I remember it was an Oldsmobile. I think Ellison Tootson had.
Yeah.
If I remember right. Had some transmission trouble with it or something. I remember that. That's the first cars that I remember. I don't remember the Model T. I'm not as old as these others, so I'm going to go back to
Okay. Anything else?
I remember the winters of 40, I think it was 48 and 49. We had so much snow that we could take the horses and the bobsled and run right over the top of the fences. We didn't have to worry about where the fences were at because the snow was so deep we could go right on over the top of it. This old white horse that we was telling you about a while ago in the box sled, we'd take her generally down to Ditterly's to meet the school bus, and we'd turn around and put her lines up on the panes of her harness and turn her loose, and she'd go back up to the house, and Dad would get her up there and unharness her and turn her loose again. And she'd go by herself all the way back up. Once in a while she'd stop at the haystack and eat hay from the stack, and Dad had to go down and get it, and she'd generally go home pretty well.
Talking about snow, when we was living in the house up on top of the Rimrock, called Rimrock at that time, I think it was in the 4th grade, and we was about 3/4 of a mile from the schoolhouse, and the schoolhouse was a one-room schoolhouse with a big heater in the back end of it, and the teacher did a good sized desk in the front end, and there were 8 grades in that one little room, and there was about 18 kids in the thing. That's the way we attended school. But talking about the snow, then every winter the snow would drift in from fence top to fence top, going back down to our home there, and we'd have to walk out in the field in there to get back to the house, and that's where the milk trucks used to go, was out through the field. But one winter, when the WPA was first started out, the roads drifted like that, and the snow got about half up on the way on the fence, and the WPA come out. They hired them to come out there. I don't know, it wasn't very much an hour they paid them, but they put in their time. They shoveled it just wide enough for one car to go down through about 3/4 of a mile of road. That worked pretty good till about 2 days later, and then here come another snowstorm, and it blew the snow in and covered up all that they had already done, besides covering up the clear up to the top of the fence post. So they opened the fence wide open and let them drive down through the field and back in to the road just in front of our house, north of the house. And that's the way they did it all winter. We had to haul our milk over north, south to meet the milk truck about, open there a mile away to get rid of the milk that winter. That enough?
Yeah. Yeah. You graduated from Hagerman, Dad?
Yeah.
Okay. And where did you, Jackie? From
Carrie here in 1944.
Okay. And Bud?
I think we had her, I graduated from Carrie, but we had her graduation exercise, I think, in Haiti,
What year?
1846.
That was a good year.
That was a good year.
That was a good year.
That's when Linda was born.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Is that all?
I enjoyed basketball and football and baseball and all the sports. Remember, Jackie and I used to play basketball and watch each other play and had a lot of fun with sports through the years, through our high school years.
You had to take care of her as you were going up
I
there.
had to help her show her how to play ball and everything, and make her happy.
Different story than I got.
Well, I remember seeing a picture, a basketball picture of you when you were.
Yeah,
You're a
that's
pretty good ball player.
I
She was the
lived in,
captain of her team part of the time.
I lived and breathed basketball.
One of the roughest one of them on the team.
Oh, I was not. I just
Her
stood
and-
up for myself.
Her and Yao,
Oh, yeah, Arlene?
Arlene Yao.
Yeah.
Nobody could stop them.
Were you High Point lady?
You bet. Had a hook shot that they couldn't stop.
Oh. Well, did you have a basketball hoop that you practiced out at the farm, or
No,
you just played?
we just practiced at school whenever we had a chance.
We didn't practice like they do now, did we? They just
And probably had more
practice
fun
all the
after it.
time, yeah. Yeah, we just had our PE period that we practiced basketball.
I remember one time we was going over to play ball over at Fairfield, and Ivan Rudd had a little Model A, I believe it was. We had, no it wasn't, it was a little Mercury, little coupe Mercury, I believe it was. We got over by Bellevue there somewhere, and it was going too fast and slid down off the road. Went down around the turn and slid off the road and come right back on the road and kept right on and going.
That probably belonged to Evan and Dolores.
I believe it was, yeah. And Mac Peck had a little Model A that we turned the road from school to out to Fish Creek with him. We had a car full one day, there was 3 or 4 of us in the Model A, and Jack Bitterly was sitting on my lap, and we went around the corner, the sharp turns out there going out toward Fish Creek after we got off the main road. Went around one turn and it was going pretty fast and just about stood off the road, and a bag full of football cleats fell out from above Jack's head. He says, I think something fell out. I thought he was going to go over.
Them were the good old days, huh?
That's when we made fun for ourselves instead of having to depend on somebody else to make fun for us.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
Pulling each other behind the horse on skis.
Games we used
Giving
to play.
Grandma heart attacks,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Playing
Games
marbles.
we used to play, the kids haven't even heard of them nowadays.
What was
Kick
that?
the can and steel sticks.
Steel pile.
Run my sheepy run. We used to run all over out there, playing Run My Sheepy Run. Kids don't even know what you're talking about now.
That's almost as bad as Lumpy Dick.
Hey, you haven't lived till you've eaten Lumpy Dick. That's what sustained the pioneers.
And it sounded like the Green family once or twice. Oh, Grandma'd make her own bread and everything too, didn't she?
Mhm.
Grandma Chris.
Grandma Green, your mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, she made about 8 loaves every other day.
Every other day?
Every other day, the boys would come home from school and take the crust right off the top of the freshly baked loaf of bread.
And you ate the rest of 2 loaves for supper.
Right.
The rest of it we ate for supper, what we didn't eat then.
Bread and milk.
But she got used to it, we never did get a licking for it.
No,
either.
she expected it, didn't she?
Yeah. She loved her kids.
We ate a lot of bread and milk and
No,
jelly.
boy. A lot of bread and milk and a lot of macaroni and rice.
Potatoes.
Mom never turned anybody away for a table.
Nope. It was just, she said, you always want to leave some on the table. You know, you're full when you left. Well, we didn't do bad, sis.
No, that's pretty good.
Except we
pretty
couldn't
good.
talk. We sounded like we jabbered pretty dang good.
I think you have. You did.
Well, I think I remembered Mom for when she'd wash on the board. Across here, she'd have blisters. She didn't
What's
only
this
wash
one?
about every 3 weeks or so. And when she washed, she had a big washing on that board. When she scrubbed on the board, even after Dad bought her that gas washer, she still scrubbed on the board. Boiled her clothes on the boiler in that stove. But
Remember,
across here, she just had both hands with nothing
Washer
but
we had,
blisters
you had to
after
stand
wash
there and
day.
go like this.
Yeah.
That's
Push the
about
handle
one
back
of
and
the
forth.
first we had too. No, it didn't. But sister, that washer, first one we had the salesman come from Clover Creek, and I can't think of his name now to save me. And when he brought it in and started it up, and told my Mom, well, stuff it full of stuff there. So Mom went ahead and filled it up with stuff and put the lid down on it, and he started it up. And then he went off and sat in the corner and read the paper while she was doing all the work with the rest of the time.
I can imagine washing on a washboard for
I remember
5 boys.
Yeah,
ju- just like that too in the
they
old
wore their
old
pants
scrubbing board.
forever. Till they fell off. They were so dirty they fell off.
How did you take a bath?
What?
How'd you take a bath?
We didn't do it very
In a
often.
number 10.
In a wash tub.
Number 10 tub. When we lived out here on Fish Creek, we had this spring that run down by the barn. In the summertime, that's where I bath. Otherwise, we just bathed in a number 10.
Number 10 tub, just a great big old tub.
Yeah.
In the
It
kitchen
wasn't
or?
big, very
Not-
big
not
either.
very big.
We done a lot of swimming in Billinger Creek too when we was
Yeah.
big enough to walk down to Billinger Creek.
In the canal up there, you guys used to swim in the canal in the summertime.
Yeah.
That was your guys' bath.
Used to herd cows out. I used to drive all the neighbors' cows, get them all together and charge them a nickel a head to herd them, keep them out until about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, then bring them home. And I'd swim in the canal about 2 hours during the day most of the time, just killing time watching them. So when the fall come one time, I took the cows all home and delivered them, and that night I went over and Thumb and I decided to get married, and so I went in and Dad Kirtland and Scotty and Grandma Kirtland was sitting around the table, and Dad Kirtland, I said, well, Dad, can I have Thelma's hand? And his mouth flew open, his ears fell back, and he said, have Thelma's hand? And I said, yeah. He said, well, how are you going to do with her? And I said, well, I don't know how to do with her. And I said, well, I'll make a bargain with you. I've been herding your cows most of the summer for a nickel a head a day, and I said, I'll just trade you that cow herding bill for your daughter. He says, take her.
Oh. Okay, how much did you get on your first job, Dad? Or how much did you make? What were your wages around?
Oh, my first job, I started working for Johnny Jones. It was $45 a month, and we was paying for an automobile and bought a Singer sewing machine for $3 down and $3 a month for 3 years. And Phil was trying to bake bread for her all the time instead of buying bread. And I come home at noon one time, and we lived in an old shack on the place, and got up there, and she come to the door and she was crying, and I said, well, what's the matter, hon? And she said, well, I baked some bread. And she said, when I got through with it, it wouldn't raise, wouldn't do nothing. I said, well, what'd you do with it? She said, I throwed it out to the dogs, and the dogs wouldn't even eat it. So that's what made me mad. But we worked there 12 years. When I moved off, we had lived in 3 different houses, from the worst to the best on the place. And I think I was making $120, $140 a month when I finally quit and went up to work with Scott and Skinner up on the hill.
How much did you get, Bud, on your first job?
Wasn't very much. First job that I actually got paid for, I think, was when we used to cut willows off the canal banks and get the young guys around the neighborhood out there to trim willows. I don't remember how much we got.
That wasn't very much.
It was very little that we got, but I don't remember how much it was.
After you got home from the service and everything, what did you do then? Do you remember how much it was or anything?
Yeah, that's when I worked at a mattress. Well, I worked at Cress's in Provo for one summer. I don't remember what I got there. It was only about $1 an hour or something like that when I got there. And then I went to school, went to vocational school.
She got it running in there, huh?
Took up
It's
mechanics.
that fan on the stove.
Went to school to learn mechanics, and then I worked at the mattress factory over in the mattress while I was going to school for 2 years. And I got out of there and went into a Chevrolet dealership. Started out at $1.65 an hour there.
What was you getting when you quit?
When I quit the other day,
Yeah.
I was, I don't know, it was $6, $7 an hour, I guess. Part way before I finished work, I had to give it up because I give up the mechanical part of it because of my Parkinson's disease. I couldn't get my hands to cooperate and work on a car, so then I had to give that up and just work towing cars. And then at the end of that last year, I hurt my shoulder and got a medical retirement along with Parkinson's and heart condition and everything. So now I'm retired.
Tired or retired?
Both.
All right. Okay, Ellis, what were your jobs?
Well, first one was down there to Melbourne Sparks. I don't remember how much we got a month. Wasn't very much.
You worked for $30 a month before we were married, though.
Well, I was out there.
Yeah.
That was the first job I had after we was married, was down in Milford.
Yeah.
And where did we go from there?
Well, then you
Went to
moved
work
out
for,
on Fish Creek.
oh yeah. Moved out there and that up 40 acres again.
Yeah.
40 acres was what you had? How much did Grandpa and Grandma have?
3 cows. I don't know. They had a lot of grazing ground that was with that place.
There's 80
But they
acres on
only
the main.
Yeah, they made
Yeah.
quite 80 acres.
Main farming that was about 88.
They always had milk cows. They would always milk the milk cows and run a few calves up by the dam in the summertime. And have to get them and dehorn them and brand them each year. And made things more interesting for us. We always run our milk cows way back up in the canyon. There was for 3 or 4 miles, I guess, up there. We'd have to go get the cows each night and bring them
If you
back.
could find it.
If we could find them, gather them all up and bring them in and milk them. Night and morning.
I remember one evening when I was living up to Cary, and Dad had been into town and had to come back. No, it was early in the morning. And I was standing out in the field there, and there's 4 or 5 head of deer come by the north of the house up there by the canal. So I ran in and grabbed the 30-30 and walked up there and killed 2 of them. And about the time that I was messing around with them, Dad come home and he said, "Mom, where's Leland?" He said, "He's up there, he's killed a deer." And it was out of season, closed season in the spring of the year. And just about scared Dad to death. Get them dang things down here so we can get them cleaned up and out of the road. So we finally got them in a box and drug them down and skinned them out in the barn. And Grandpa was, or my dad was just about white by the time he got through skinning the deer and getting them out of the road. We couldn't ever afraid to even take them in town to the ice balls.
It was dude that killed those 2 deer up in the hole there east of the
Yeah.
place, wasn't it? He shot them, and then he didn't quite kill the second one he shot, so he hit it over the head with the butt of his gun and broke the gun. And was Grandpa ever mad? Let me tell you,
Now, the old gun was dang near an old keepsake.
he went hitched up the team and took the sled up and went in and pulled them out, and then he made them tie branches on the end of the sled, the bobsled, to cover up the tracks going down into the hole. And that was in the winter time, out of season too.
That one was a lot of snow.
That's
Yeah.
when they wanted lots of meat to eat and didn't have enough to kill stuff.
Yeah. But you could sit there and watch those deer
Oh.
trail back and forth across over the hills up there north of the house.
But I never
So pretty.
never did kill any more after that. Don't try that again.
We can just, okay, this is April 14. That was, and we have Dude here, and we want to hear a little bit from him.
Well, dude just got done with these chores and he's awful damn tired right now, and he just can't think of too much to say.
Okay, well, this.
Chased my sheep around and I chased my asses, but I got them all fed.
Okay, all right. Where did you meet Mary? Mary's from Cary too, isn't she?
Oh, where did I meet Mary? I guess I must have met her in school.
Was it?
Yeah, we met in school and we dated in school for 2 years. After she got out of school, and then we got married.
Okay, all right. Tell us just something that you remember about Grandpa and Grandma.
She gave me hell of a slap on the side of the face one day.
And you didn't
Let's
deserve
keep
it?
clean.
It is clean. That slap on the face was just as clean as I can remember it.
What did you do to deserve that?
She said I locked her in a chicken coop, but I don't think I did.
Oh.
She caught me by surprise.
Being a green, I can believe it.
So,
But other than that, we had a pretty good time.
Don't you? Aren't you sure he?
Where are your kids now? Oh.
Locked who in the chicken coop?
Mom.
Which time was that?
I think that was probably Bud that locked him in there. And I got blamed for it, and I got slapped for it.
I didn't ever do anything like
Oh,
that.
I believe you did. And you went on to the barn, and I come in the house.
Wasn't me.
Yeah, that was.
Must have been Charlie.
No, that would been Bud.
Okay,
No,
so
my
you
kids-
lived all the time up Fish Creek then, didn't you? With Grandpa and Grandma. Is that
Yeah,
the only
I
place you
spent
lived?
Many years up there. Most of my high school, all my high school and grade school. Went to service for a couple of years. Come back and
Where did you have to serve in the service?
I went to Fort Ord, took basic training, and then I spent the rest of my time in Wisconsin in the
In jail.
radar unit.
In jail.
Yeah, it was in jail. It was a dark room, real dark room. And Mary, she spent a lot of time back there with me. We enjoyed it. Wisconsin's a beautiful state. Wouldn't mind being there. Lots of rain and rolling green hills.
Okay, tell us where your kids are. What they're doing now.
Well, I got a daughter, Deb. She's down in Arizona right now. She's going to school and working in a part shop half a day and trying to get herself through school.
Would be a school teacher.
Going to be a school teacher. And Deb, Sheila, she's working for the Forest Service up to Ketchum in the SNRA building. And Connie, she's a nursing in LeGrand, Oregon. And
Is she working?
yeah, she's working now, part time, whenever she
Kids
wants
she
to.
got?
She's got 2 kids, a boy and a girl. And Kyle, he's in Boise right now. He's going to a jailer school down there. He'll be home to visit for tonight, Saturday and Sunday, and then he'll go back Sunday. He'll have 3 more weeks after this week. That's about it.
He's
Oh.
got one boy.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
got
Kyle's
one boy.
got one boy, and this is Clayton. Let me find you, Clayton. Okay, this is Sheila's.
Tell her you're staying at
Boy,
Grandpa's. For a
Can
day
you
or
tell
two.
me you're staying? Where do you live, Clayton?
In Haley.
Okay, and where do you go to school?
In Haley.
Who you staying with?
My grandpa.
Okay.
Who's your best girlfriend?
I don't have one.
Oh. Okay. Now the closer.
There's the D. There's the C, and there's the B.
Yeah, that's Grandpa and Grandma Green. When was this picture taken?
What? Oh, that was their
50th, right?
anniversary. Yeah.
Oh, was it their 50th wedding anniversary?
Is it gonna take it?
I think so. This looks really good.
I still got a piece of her 50th wedding anniversary cake.
Yeah.
Of Grandpa and Grandma's?
In the old part.
Should we go eat it?
Sure. Go ahead. Okay.
Oh, she had a big party over to school, I remember. And
Down
some
at
of her.
Mrs. Billingsley's.
Oh no, I think it was over to the school.
No, it's Mrs. Billingsley.
Anyway, they had a big party, and Jackie happened to be there. They got playing strip poker, and I guess they practically stripped the clothes off the school teacher and a couple of other women. Jackie said she had clothes left on, but she probably didn't. She
I
probably
had-
took them off, just looked like the others.
I had Mrs. Billingsley's dress on.
Okay.
You gotta get on that one.
Okay, this is Dutch and Amanda Green, 1951 about. Was it? It was down at our house in Hagerman, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see where we come out with it. Okay, let's go to the next. Okay, tell Dad who it is.
This is Uncle Fred and Aunt Alice. Now, I don't know where it's at. It looks like
It's in front of our house too, I think.
in front of the house there.
Who's that?
You and Allison, man.
They lived at Buell.
Okay, just a sec. No. Okay, can't focus.
Skin on a deer.
That
Okay. I don't think they're showing up very good.
This is Aunt Lade and Uncle Fred, and they lived at Hegman in Townside half of their life.
Okay.
Oh, Who are these two?
Grandpa, and Aunt El, Coon, and Aunt Lade.
Okay. Better say Teresa instead of Coon, though. She doesn't like Coon very well.
Can you see why Aunt Teresa would think that you were Dad?
No.
That one was a few years ago, too.
Yeah, she's got some old history here, I'll tell you.
This was in Cary. Of 4 generations. Notice the neat glasses on my brother, if you can see him. Okay. Oh, that's taken up here out at that greenhouse out in Cary, isn't it?
Out
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
at the lake, looks like.
Yeah.
And off?
No, I'll put it back in here.
Oh, okay.
Grandpa and Grandma's 50th wedding anniversary. Their cake and their little flowers.
In the house out by the lake.
What year was this in?
Isn't the date on it?
Nope.
Let's see.
Might be on the back of the picture there.
Hey,
What's
this
going on
is
out there? You quit letting me in
Jackie
that
out at
house.
Fish Creek.
Okay.
What's the matter?
Nothing.
Nothing, honey.
Anyway, I hollered at all the kids and shit over the telephone. They never
This
did
is
hear.
Ellis.
What's that?
But it does.
I bet it'd work on Charlie's down there.
Hey, do you remember the name of that horse that we had when we used to
Oh.
drive to school?
Not too
All
much.
down to Bitterly's?
He says this is a senior high school picture of
7th
Bud.
of June. Oh, you.
And this is Jackie and Ellis up at Fish Creek
Picture of
and
Grandma Green.
Right.
at the Wood River Dam instead of Fish Creek. This is Grandma Green up at Fish Creek after they had moved down into the house where Toots and Ellis lived, and she's feeding a little pig there
Yeah.
with her bottle. Another before and after.
He's retired.
When was this picture, Bud?
I'm gonna go pee out on
That's when I went on the mission.
Okay, this is the after,
He
and that's
said,
the
"Don't
before.
retire,
1949.
Sid. You go
1949? Oh, that was just 50 years ago.
It is.
It's looking at Christmas, so.
Well, this was a couple of years ago, because
Yeah,
that's
just a couple.
Jerry and Gina.
There's Randy.
Uh-huh.
That's Kurt sitting.
Is it in your house now?
Yeah.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, and there's Grandpa and Grandma.
Wonder if Lee wants to come in and see that. Yeah, no, it was Grandpa and Grandma on that one.
That's Gina.
Well, that's Grandpa right there. Yeah, fishing.
Grandpa and Gina fishing.
Mhm. That's that Fish Creek Reservoir. Grandpa used to like to look over the top and down on that side. Had the finger over the
Finger over something somewhere.
Who are these?
Yeah,
Dad? Randy, that's John and Brent.
yeah.
No, there's 2 pictures on there.
That's Ned hunting, that's said clubbed, I think.
Uh-huh.
She's got double exposure on them. They're swimming and diving off in the snow at the same time.
Uh-huh.
Well, I can't stand her. She doesn't leave yet.
Okay. Jean has a Christmas angel, or good heavens, that's Gloria and Lara Lee, and who's
Must be Charlie Scotty's kids, I don't know.
yeah, it's Gloria and Lara Lee, but I don't know whose babies. There we go with the green reunion. Is that Jackie with Russ?
No, I wasn't Jackie, nothing.
Oh, is that all?
Backwards here, man.
Oh, okay. Mom and Dad, they're...
I can't tell who that was.
No, I couldn't either. Dutch and Amanda there.
I just don't know.
Good heavens, Dee and I are in the background, and Bev and Bud and Grace.
Clear picture like the other.
Oh, I had Tammy.
I still couldn't tell who it was when he was a babe. There they are. That's Jerry.
It's Russ. Russ. It says Gina, Russ, and
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
when Russ was a baby.
Yep. Still had the old tar siding on the house.
Gina and Russ coming across the street.
Mm-hmm.
There's Snowman.
That's Randy.
Fun.
Well, hello, John. How you doing anyway? Well, we've been to do a little chit-chatting. We got to talking and telling stories. And I just gotta tell him, had to tell him about the little incident that I got a scar to remember you by. Whenever I get to talking about you, I always have to feel under my chin and feel that little scar where I was hit with a German and Jap hand grenade. And I don't know who for sure it was through by, but I think it was you. And so, anyway, that's the way I'm going to remember you anyway. With you all the time anyway.